Hey Nigel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be on it.
I'm so excited to talk to you because I when I'm reading about you and I see all the experience you have in the startup world. I think it's so cool because this is like there's so many startups that are gonna get created in this
hmm
space, and having that knowledge of building a startup and raising investment and all that. I
hmm
would love to get your starting off with. I would love to get your 2 cents on what does the ecosystem look like right now and what's
hmm
happening behind the scenes.
So, the BitClout ecosystem has been incredible. Given that this is a project that only started from an outsider's perspective in March, we're seeing, 100 or more projects happening. And not only is there a project happening, but they are developing in conjunction with their users who also happen to be their coin holders. So they're also
Yep.
promoters and boosters. Um, and so you get like often when you talk to any developers, they build something, you can get a little dejected, you get that early enthusiasm, but like it's a long way to the start line even. Here, you come up with an idea and then you can basically sort of throw it out there. You can get supporters almost immediately, and then you can start building off that enthusiasm. So I just think it's an incredible way to build projects, and I think that the community we're seeing, the building up around it, is just reflective of this is a new way to build software projects, and much better than kind of the old way, as it were.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Even I saw even with your project, you had a thing over there where you're like, hey, fill out the survey and you can, I'm gonna give you this much amount of coin or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And you're getting your first users to be invested in you,
Yes.
and then it's like your beta users, and
hmm
they're invested because they hold the coin, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden now you can test on them and see what works and if there's a need in the market or not and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's incredible, like to give, and this is like imagine being an early coin holder in Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine the economic upside of being early. There was no benefit to being early, right? You had to deal with like buggy products, and you were just an early adopter, and you ended up having to you dealt with buggy products. You had to spend the most. You had the you had the worst experience, and now if you're an early adopter and you can actually get in early and get some of the economic side of of being that sort of early coin holder. That's incredible.
Yeah, and also I love the fact that I know you guys are investors in Prosper Clout
hmm
with Salil, and so I'm having him on the show next week, and I was chatting with him, and it was so interesting because I was like, it's like so I went through YC in 2016, and the whole motto of make something people want, and
Yeah,
yeah, I want to buy your coin because I am your user, and
yeah,
I actually want analytics platform for myself,
hmm
and it's so cool that you're building that. I can chat with you and help you shape that product.
yeah,
I'm so vested in it, right?
yeah, yeah. So like not only is like building what people want, is you're immediately getting that feedback, and you're turning your customer into a booster. There's someone who is really invested, who wanted to be successful, and are going to help you to get there. That's a really big change.
Yeah, I love that. I actually want to know, want viewers to know more about both your projects that
hmm
you're working on. But I think we should start off with quickly giving a quick intro on what your previous companies were,
hmm
because they're in the sports and the betting
Yes.
industry. So I think it'd be really cool to tie that in with
Yeah.
BitCloud.
Yeah. So my like a number of startups before, but the sort of most notable one, 2009, we launched FanDuel. FanDuel is a daily fantasy sports and sports betting platform. Um, we we sort of effectively created this thing called One Day or Daily Fantasy Sports. We grew that very rapidly. If people are not familiar with traditional fantasy sports, lasts all season. Our games only last one day, and people could come in, play, compete with other players, win big cash prizes. Um, it was a mobile native product, so people could do the whole experience on their phone, which was quite innovative at this time. Um, and yeah, it was very successful. And then when sports betting became legalized in the US, we had this huge brand and user base that we could cross sell into sports betting. And FanDuel now not only is this huge daily fantasy sports product, but also is the leading sports betting platform in the US. So yeah, incredible success story. Was very. It was a period we built it from 2000 and I started in 2007. We launched FanDuel in 2009. and then sports betting liberalized in 2018. So it was about 10 years of building this product, but an incredible journey.
Are you still involved with FanDuel, or
I'm
you
not.
moved
No,
on
I
now?
left
Yeah,
just 3.5 years ago to
got it.
start Flick, my current company.
Makes sense. And so, for someone like you, it's all about opportunity cost, right? Like
Hmm.
you can work on anything. What was it about BitClout that intrigued you?
So when we left Fangel, my co-founded Fangel with me. We actually were really intrigued about sort of a creator economy. And back in 2018, no one really, very few people were talking about that. And we just sort of thought we're fascinated by these platforms like sort of like Reddit or even like Instagram or podcasting, where we had these creators creating content. And there's sort of two things that they were struggling with. One was like how to really connect with their top fans, and the other one was how to monetize that. They were largely just reliant on advertising. I've always thought advertising is a very crappy business model, because you're really spending your time selling to advertisers, and advertisers' interests are not the same as your listeners, your top fans, and it just seemed really weird that somebody would build like an amazing podcast about the paranormal, and next thing they're like selling underwear or toothbrushes or. And so we just were like, well, there must be a better way. Like there must be like a way that your top fans would be really wanted to support this show and invest in this show. And so that's we spent several years working on it. And we learned a lot of insights into that market. Um, we also discovered it was really hard. It was a really difficult problem to solve. And so whenever we had looked at different and experimented with different things like tipping, like subscriptions, and different products like that. And really struggled with those. And when we saw BitClout, we were like, wow, this is really revolutionary. Like here's a platform where the creator will be very heavily incentivized to bring and certainly their top audience over. And there's a real benefit to the audience as well. And so it was like, we had spent several years looking for a solution to a problem. And when we saw BitClout, we're like, here is a key component to the solution. And that's why we said we want to work with this.
Were you still working with sports, like people in the sports industry, or was it like creators in, like, example, Instagram influencers or stuff like that?
We'd worked with all of those. We did. So over 2018, 2019, we had worked across multiple different verticals, be it there was podcasters or and verticals like that, and different topics within that. Um, the In 2020, we'd actually done a lot of work on the sports vertical, and we actually had a particular version of the app called Flick Sports, and that's where we're working with sports influencers. But we've sort of experience with working with lots of different categories, lots of different verticals.
So and the reason I'm asking this question is because I think, because you have such an amazing knowledge in this ecosystem, like with respect to, like, creators and like sports and stuff like that. I wonder, like, so apart from speculation, and, like, obviously there's that 1,000 true fans concept with the top 10%
Hmm.
of the, whatever, top
Yep.
1% of the fans, who will buy anything. But apart from that, what kind of, like, incentives you see as a someone who's like investing in a sports person?
Hmm.
How do you see that evolving? How do you see that like, that they're seeing, okay, it's not only speculation, it's also like that I'm going to get something out of it?
Sure. So, and you're specifically with regard to sports?
Oh, anything, sports
Okay.
or yeah.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time looking into this. We actually even built a model. We called it the sort of premium model, of uh, why someone would invest in an artist or a creator. Um, and like I can actually go through it because I think it did capture most of the areas that were important. The first one was just patronage. Um, why do people like why do people give money to Wikipedia, right?
Yep.
Like, not only do you not get any benefit, you don't get a better Wikipedia. Um, you don't even get any recognition, right? It's not like, oh, here's Nigel Eccles, he gave like several $100s to Wikipedia. The big reason that people give to it is patronage because they believe in that foundation, they believe in the mission, they believe that knowledge should be free and should be universally accessible. and so they feel good about giving to it. And so what we find is that, one of the top reasons that people give to creators is because they feel that they want to support them.
Makes
So that would be
sense.
the first one. Second one is recognition. People people will give, but they'll give more if they're kind of recognized as being a gifter. And so we've seen all sorts of recognition. We've seen, you know, like in the movie industry is a classic one. They've executive producers. Executive producers are really people who give money, and they'll get some financial return, but they get their name and credits. But we've
Yep.
seen creators do that. We're like, we'll include you in the show notes. We'll give you a shout out in the show. We want to thank you for supporting us. So recognition is really important. Third one, and a lot of people skip to this third one, and it's really important, but it's not. It's actually not the most important one, but it's exclusive content. So everyone gets all this content for free, but if you pay, you get this sort of exclusive content. It can be very effective. It's sometimes a little challenging for creators because they're already spending 24/7 creating lots of content, and do they really have the time to create this exclusive tier? Some people have done it really well. So True Crime Obsessed is a podcast who do an incredible number of premium shows, and they're only accessible to they're on Patreon. They do a really nice job on it. So some people can do it. It's not necessary, um, because some of the other ones are really strong. And then I'll give you a couple of the other ones, because the other one is membership of community. So why am I paying? Well, because I want to be in the top 100 people, um, and where I'm basically like hanging out with other people who are top 100 fans. You see, and so that, and actually, you sometimes go into these a creator, the top, creator fan groups, and it's people chatting with other fans, not necessarily the creator, and it's because they have this sort of shared interest. And then I'd say the last one I'll just go through, which is access. People want sort of some sort of, and you even described as intimacy, access to the creator, a feeling of sort of connectedness with them.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Again, that's something that people pay for.
Yep.
And that's not necessarily like, obviously you see that on OnlyFans,
Yep. Yep.
but there's lots of like safe for work versions of that where
Yep.
someone is a fan and they kind of feeling of connection. So like I give you a very very classic safe for work example of that: tipping in Twitch. Why do people tip
Yep.
in Twitch, right? And so one of them is recognition, but part of it is like part of it's patronage. They think the stream is really great. And also one is they want to feel a sort of connection with that host, that sort of intimacy, and that's one of the reasons why they tip.
That's very interesting. I'm gonna ask. I kind of feel like, so one also thing is like, so this is already happening in a way, right? So are we saying that with the decentralized world that we're moving towards, the Web 3.0, we're saying that now it's not only with things that we would already want to do, that's like human behavior,
Hmm.
but now we're saying, one, when you do this, you also grow with the creators. So like, for example, if I tip somebody, I get quote unquote stocks in them, and I'm growing with
Yeah.
them. Right, that's one part, and the other part also like kind of like that whole, like, assuming, we're talking about ownership of IP here. So I can prove it that I was one of the first 100 people who was a supporter. So like kind of mixing that with the things you said, kind of thing, right?
Yes, I think there's probably um, two or three things here that we see as new. First one is we make it really easy, right? Um, and you just look at Twitter, like, oh, this guy's great. I want to go tip them. I go to tip, and then I got to link up my PayPal, and then it's just like it's hard, right? So I'd say
Mhm.
that's the first one. It's just we can make it a lot easier. Like I can diamond somebody, dink, one click, suddenly that's a tip. It's a real tip. Um, Second thing I think we can do, and we are doing, is we can make a cultural change, right? Like, something we've had a discussion internally, like, let's get rid of likes. If you really like something, give them a cent, right? Like,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
create this sort of culture that, you know, if people are creating something and you really like it, you're going to give them something of value. And I like
yeah,
really is valueless. It's kind of
yeah,
like, I like is kind of nearly a dislike.
yeah,
If
and
we have
also,
this sort of,
yeah, and
again,
also all these bots on like Twitter or Instagram. You see like, they like hype up like so many likes and so many comments. They're all fake, but all of a
yes.
sudden now no one's gonna put their own money in for that.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this is, like we can create this sort of cultural change that where people actually can give real money for stuff that they like. And I actually think that we are seeing a change in digital media from a belief that everything is free and should be free to a sort of appreciation that, like with NFTs, like our digital art was free before, right? And
Yep.
there was no appreciation really given to the creator of that art. Now we see it with NFTs is like, no, that's not free. Like that is something, like, yeah, you can have a copy of it, but you can actually buy it, and not buying it as an appreciation of the creator. We can now see that in content on BitClout. That's really exciting. And then the third thing, just to go with it, is this concept with ownership, and we're seeing that with NFTs, and we're seeing that on
Yep.
BitClout, which is, if I find an artist, and with regards to an NFT that's undiscovered, if I find a creator in BitClout, I can buy into that person and be excited about seeing the upside as the rest of the world discovers them.
Yeah. And also the status thing probably as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like me saying I'm one of the only 10,000 people in the world who bought the Gary V NFT.
Yeah,
It's a flex, right? Which you
absolutely.
do
It
on.
reflects really well as you and use it
Yeah.
as somebody who has good taste. Absolutely.
Yeah, so crazy. Kind of move on to your product. So, what made you wanted to build like the BitClout version? Would we still call it the Flickr app for BitClout, or is
It's
that
it's a flick app for BitClout.
Flick?
Yeah,
Sorry, Flick app. Yeah,
yeah. So the reason was that when we saw BitClout, we were like, this is a key technology for what we wanted to build. But we recognized that unless there was a really, really slick AAA native mobile experience, this wouldn't be successful. Um, the you look at Instagram today, and it is a really clean, slick experience. You look at TikTok today; it's a really clean, slick experience. Millions or tens, hundreds of millions of dollars been invested to get it there. And so when we looked at BitCloud, we are like, "Wow, this protocol is amazing. Let's be that platform on top. Let's invest, the money and the people hours early to build that really slick experience." And that's what we're trying to do.
love that. And I was reading one of your like posts. You said we're working with Maybeam and the BitClout
Hmm.
team and an official BitClout identity mobile
That's right.
library.
Yes.
What is that? Can you elaborate more?
Yeah. So the way BitClout works today is there's BitClout identity, and we need that because as people build other applications, we don't want to type our seed phrase into all of these. That's be highly insecure, right?
Yeah.
So they created identity so that other applications on the web can go say, okay, confirm you are who you are using identity. Great, and that goes back. The problem is that that doesn't work well with native applications. So native applications work differently from web applications. The way BitCloud Identity at the moment is that it sits within our app. Well, it actually sits within a web view of our application, um, and so we take you to a web view of BitCloud Identity, and then you put in your seed phrase and you come to BitCloud. Great. However, if there was a malicious actor who created what they said was a BitCloud reader, they could basically interfere. They could basically grab that seed phrase, and then that would be insecure. And so what we're working with the BitCloud team is a way that anyone can build a native app that that basically interfaces with BitCloud identity in a secure way. And so
Got it.
even if that person creates a malicious app, they can't then get your seed phrase because you're entering it via the browser, which is separate from the app.
I love that. And so is the goal also to let that can be used by other apps as
Oh
well?
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're
Yeah.
that's
Got
the
it.
whole idea is that
Yeah.
BitCloud Identity would be in like an open source library, and then anyone who's building a native app for it would use that. And so we're excited to like contribute to that process.
That's amazing. I love that because even like I was chatting with Hunter Paulson, and
Hmm.
we're chatting about this as well. And he said the same thing that right now, if you were to use BitCloud Identity on mobile, it's more unsafe than using a Chrome extension. He was like talking about like it's very
Yeah, so it's um there's no, like, in crypto, the idea of trustless. Like I don't have to trust anybody. Unfortunately, with BitCloud Identity today on mobile, you have to trust the developer. Now, we are a Delaware incorporated company. Myself and my co-founder and my whole team are very public about who we are. And so,
yep.
if we were to do something malicious, you could sue us. So you have that. But we want to create and so that's why important why we're public. They're saying, like, a lot of times, like when you go into Coinbase, you trust Coinbase, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and so it's not unusual in an organization says you kind of have to trust us for this. And so that works, and that works in most industry or most tech startup. But we want to be in a position where you don't have to trust us, where you can basically, or you don't even have to trust any app that you use, and that's why we want to build it as an open source library that
Source.
all apps would use.
Love that. And how is the just for the viewers? How is it? What's the timeline looking like for both these things that you're building?
So for BitClout Identity, I think it's sort of a period of like sort of 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Is kind of like when that. Now we use BitClout Identity today, but moving it to a fully trustless experience is probably like sort of 4 to 6 weeks away. With the Flick app where it is today, it's on a continuous development cycle, and so we have a native iOS app in the App Store today. It's going to get upgraded over the next few days, and it's every week we're going to push up updates. And then Android should have been today, but may actually maybe pushed on Monday. So we're still working through a few issues with it.
So what's the timeline looking like right now for Flick and for the library, BitClout library, mobile library?
Yeah. So well, I'm going to cover Flick first. The iOS app was released about 2 weeks ago. We are pushing updates to it pretty much every week now. I'm trying to think. Um, this week we're releasing diamonds and also linking through to Prosper Cloud. That release might go out on Monday. It's just gone up to the App Store, so that's quite exciting. The Android app, I believe, will go out very early next week. So a lot of progress. But what you'll see with those apps is you're going to see very fast development cycles. The products will just get better and better from here on. And then with identity, it's looking somewhere around sort of 4 to 6 weeks. So at the moment, we use BitClout Identity, but it's within a web view of the app. Whenever we have a fully kind of trustless one, what it's likely to do is to use like an authenticator, as it were, which means that you don't actually have to trust us, that you're putting your seed phrase into something that is secure, and then you come back to the app.
I love that. I like how like when you're building products and you're like, we need this for ourselves, and then you're like,
Mhm.
oh, let's make that into a product. I feel that every time, like as we're building products, like for BitCloud as well. Every time we build something, we're like, yeah, we want this for ourselves. Let's just turn that into for everybody else,
Distributed
kind of
abroad.
thing.
Yeah, and I think it's a view that like BitCloud is what 10 to 15,000 DAUs. It's tiny,
Yeah,
and it really, to be successful, we need the ecosystem to be successful.
agreed.
And so some people were like sort of talking to me when I was in Miami about our competition with the other apps, and I'm like, you've got it all wrong. Like we could be the dominant app on BitCloud, and we would fail miserably. Like just to give you an example, our Flick Sports app, which is still live, it has more DAUs than all of BitCloud. So like that's the thing, is BitCloud is really small and it's a really passionate community, which is great, and a lot of people are focused on it, but it's still really small. And so we
Yep.
needed to grow it into a million users, 10 million users, 100 million users, and
Yep.
working with the community is really one of the core ways that we can do that.
Yeah, I love that. Regarding talking about the ecosystem, like obviously you have a lot of friends like who are other startup founders. You're talking
Hmm.
to a lot of devs. You're talking to VCs probably.
Hmm.
What's the vibe in the ecosystem? What are you hearing?
There's a lot of buzz now. And I'd say there was a little bit of buzz at the start, back in March when there was more PR. Actually, there was more negativity, I'd say, then. Like, I think they got a lot of backlash from how they launched and reserving their accounts. And, when I told our board that we were pivoting, they were supportive, but like certainly one of them was like, "Oh my God, I've heard a lot of bad stuff about that project." And I
Yep.
was like, "Oh,
Yep.
really?" And I think basically the core team delivering what they said they would do, which is like open sourcing, open up the nodes, decentralizing, listing on exchange. Like basically, they've done what they said they're going to do, and I think
Yep.
a lot of there's certainly going to be people out there that are like BitClout nevers, and they are not really going to change. But a lot of people were like, kind of show us, and I think a lot of those people have been won over. I also think that externally, people are seeing some of the projects and are like, this is really interesting. And so I've made introductions to some of the projects to a lot of VCs that I know, because they're suddenly like,
Yep.
what can I invest in? Like, what do you think is interesting on the platform? And that's really only in the last couple of weeks that that's been happening.
I love that. That's great. It's actually, by the way, thank you. This is people like yourself, like taking, jumping in early, because I think it's also very, as I was kind of chatting about before, when you're a successful founder, it's easier to say, I'm going to jump back in later, right? It's like,
Hmm.
well, let it kind of grow. So
Yeah,
it's really cool. It's really cool that you are like, jumping in when it's so early, like you said, only 10,000, 15,000
yeah.
users, and you're building, which is amazing. So that's really
Yeah, no,
great
it's like
great for
that's
the
I
ecosystem.
just like building stuff. Like the other extreme is like the VC angle, which is I'm gonna wait until it's sort of like fun though. I mean, like more later stage VCs, like early guys
Yeah,
do take a bit of a risk, but no, I just like building stuff. And to me, this was like a really cool protocol, and I saw it immediately. I said I want to build on this,
yeah,
and the community really helps it as well. Like it is a fun community that they want to hang out together and they want to build cool stuff. And I think also there's a lot of like we've all seen centralized social media and we've all seen how it goes wrong, and everyone agrees that we want to have something different. I think the great thing about BitClout is that the community here is not only do we want to see, we're willing to build it. Whereas I think a lot of other people are like, yeah, I'm just switching off Facebook and Twitter, and they're like, social media is still a thing. Like people feel a need to connect with other people, and unless we build it, like no one else is going to build it for us. And so that's what I like about the BitClout community.
yeah. And also crazy, by the way, because you were talking about advertising, and it's something. This is the view I have, like where so I do advertise, I do Facebook ads as like
Hmm.
and I work with YC startups usually,
Yeah.
and one of the things that really it's kind of internal, I kind of hate about it is like the way social media is set up right now is that you have to keep the user more on the platform because that's how you get more ad revenue, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate, like, but like
Yeah.
as an advertiser I kind of feel bad. I'm like, man, this should be a
Yeah.
better business model, is a business model,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't want to show people, like, I don't want to show people ads in my, but that's how you get paid. So you're like, I got to do, it's my
Yeah.
job, it's what I do,
Yeah.
but it's just unfortunate, and the
Yeah.
model is not cool. I think it
Do,
should
do,
be
do,
better.
do you know how the French make foie gras? Have you ever read about that? So
No, what's
foie
that?
gras is a type of pate that the French make,
Okay.
and the way they make it is just it's made from I think it's goose liver, and the way they make it is so a normal goose, its liver is like pretty small, and so the way they make it is they have to force feed the goose, and they force feed the goose, which expands the size of its liver. And once they've totally and by force feeding it, they basically kind of they force food into the goose. It's pretty gross, right? They
Yep.
force the food into it, and then they basically there's choker goes around the goose's neck so it can't be sick. It's really gross, right? And it's like barbaric. Foie
Yep.
gras is quite nice, but it is barbaric. Um, and that's us. We are the geese and social media, right? It's like
Yeah.
and the ads is like the food that we're stuffing into us, and they're basically balanced it. Like did we push too many ads down their throats? And that's the problem. Is we're not the customers. We're not paying for this product, and therefore their view is they can stuff as much crap down our throats, and as long as we don't throw up, then they'll stuff more.
Yep.
And that's one of the great things about BitCloud is that I am the customer. I am
Yep.
going to pay for it. And our Flick's incentives are completely aligned with our users or creators because we're doing everything for them, for their use of the product, not this sort of third party advertiser. And so
Yep.
that's the thing I really excites me about this model.
Yeah, and also, by the way, the goose point you were talking about, it's interesting, but like kind of same in that movie. I forgot the name of the movie, the one on Netflix, social,
Oh,
the one that
Black Mirror. You mean that one or no? Oh, this.
no, there was the movie that was talking about like how like all the tech companies like how they use the data to like keep you on the
Oh,
system.
yes, 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 yes.
I totally
I've not
forgot.
seen it yet. I know the one you're talking about.
I totally forgot about it. But like, but again, same thing. Me as an advertiser, I don't use social media because I know how
Yeah,
bad it is. So it's
yeah.
so unfortunate that you're like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, yeah, it's just unfortunate to think about. But with Big Cloud, it's like you don't have those specific things that just making me come back. Like if
Hmm.
I want to come back, it's because I want to come back, and I'm
Yeah.
not. You know
I
what I
don't
mean? It's
even
not.
think that,
Yeah.
advertising is not even the worst part of it is I think the concern with me with social media is their incentives aligned with you consuming more. And so they are going to do everything. And so the greatest brain power on this earth is at social media companies trying to like trick your brain into coming back again and again and again. And and using ways that you don't as a consumer probably don't even understand why you're sort of drawn back to it, especially when you don't feel that good after doing it.
Yep.
That is, that's problematic. And so that's
Yep.
something I think is interesting that with BitCloud is we're aligning with the consumer, right? We're
Yep.
aligning with their consumption of the product. And so we want to be building something that they feel good about, not something that they use repeatedly, even though they don't really understand why they use it.
Yep. By the way, I do remember the Black Mirror episode now, the one where he
Yes,
goes on a retreat. Yeah, I know
that's
what you're
right.
talking
Yeah, yeah.
about. Let's move on. I want to talk about the one thing you said, which I'm going to read your quote here. We said, "I change. I think we should consider to the protocol is lock in the bottom 80% of the creator coin stack,
Hmm.
so that they can only sell or transfer 10% per quarter and no restriction on the top 20%." I think it's genius.
Hmm.
Um, since you're talking with the BitClout team, have
Hmm.
you chatted with them? And I'm sure is anything you can share. If you can't share, that's totally fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But have you chatted with them anything about lock-in and how to like avoid how to help with rug pulls and
Yeah,
stuff like that?
there's been a lot of discussion on it, like both on BitClout, and I know that the core team have been sort of thinking a lot about it. Like, I think everyone is concerned that how does this scale to 1 million users and 10 million users? With a small community, like we can start identify bad actors, and we can start identify it's like don't invest in anonymous coins. Um, but we can't continue to educate everybody who comes on the platform, right? We can't,
Yeah,
that's not scalable. We need this system to be self reinforcing. Um, and so there's definitely been a lot of thinking. That was a proposal that I made probably like 6 to 8 weeks ago. That is one of many possibilities. I think there's other ones. I think there could be ones that are maybe not as restrictive. So maybe it's just as a creator, I cannot sell more than 10% a day. And if I start selling 10% a day, tomorrow, the next day, people quickly know that I'm, it's not, it can't do a rug pull, right? So that's an
yeah,
option. Another one could be if you go to sell, you basically put out a notice, your creator coin. I am going to sell in 24 hours. You're basically, when you hit the sell button, it basically locks it, and then it executes the sale 24 hours later. And any of your coin holders get to sell before you. So if you're selling 5%, people are like, oh, that's fine. I totally understand. He's got to eat, no problem. But if you're selling 100%, then everybody's notified and they're all out. So basically, it locks up the rug pull. So I think there's different ways to do it. And I know the core team are sort of thinking about it and want to create some sort of mechanism that just stops this sort of bad behavior.
got it. Makes sense. I love that. I was also chat again. This is like I can't talk about this in depth, but I was chatting with somebody who was telling me some of the things they're working on behind the scenes. I'm so
Hmm.
excited to. There is some amazing stuff that's happening, and it's so excited to
Yeah.
see how this will go.
Yeah.
Now,
And then
can you give me
the other
one?
thing, just a note on it, not
Yeah,
everything has to happen at the protocol level. So I see a lot of time people are discussing on the platform and they, it wouldn't be great if they did this, this, and this. Um, some of these things don't have to happen at a protocol. Just to give you an example here, um, if you had like two types of account, you had ones that were unrestricted and you had ones that were restricted. You would say, well, people could create the unrestricted account, they do rug pulls are there. Well, we at the application level within Flick, we could say we're not going to carry unrestricted accounts. So let's decentralize some of these decisions so that if somebody wants to say, hey, we're going to carry all the unrestricted accounts, we're going to be the crazy platform where all these rug pulls happen. Let the market figure it out. So that's kind of our view, is that a lot of these decisions, so some of these decisions have to be at a protocol level. Diamonds can't really do it unless they put it in the protocol.
yeah.
But some of these things that they can actually just leave it up to the applications to say, we're not going to, we're not going to carry that, or we're going to let the market decide. That's kind of
Got
something
it.
one of our thinking.
I love that. What other like challenges do you see right now with Big Cloud? Like obviously, like one thing we were talking about, which is like getting more people on the platform, which
Hmm.
obviously is something we're working on. What other things you see right now which are really challenging?
So really, I'd say there's two things, two major challenges to like mass consumer adoption. And first one is the onboarding process. And now they've done like Fate onboarding and identity. There's been a lot of improvements there, but still, we need to make this a platform that somebody who doesn't knows nothing about crypto can go from,
Yep.
Mr. B saying, "Come hang out with me on BitClout," to them being hanging out with Mr. Beast on BitClout within like a very small number of clicks.
Yep.
So that's number one. That's something we at the Flick team are very focused on making that a lot better.
Love
We're
that.
still like several weeks away from getting to where we want to be on that, maybe even a few months away from that. But that's going to be, to get to the first 1 million users, that's something we need to fix. Um, Second thing I'd say that So that's sort of step one. Step two is kind of fix early user retention, and
Yep.
I'm sure anyone has seen it. Is that you get a lot of users come on, they activate their account, and they kind of churn very quickly. I think it's a lot of it's not that one's not kind of not as simple in a way. You know, Facebook used to sort of identify that it was 7 friends within 7 days.
Yep. Yep.
I think we and a lot of other people have got to figure out what is it that happens that you go, oh, I get it, I really like this, and I want to stick around.
Like that
Uh,
magic
that
moment
magic
number.
moment, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, and I don't. Maybe there's a couple of big things, but I think it'll be a lot of small things that we're going to go, oh wow, it's this thing that really kind of locks people in. So I guess number two, and then the third thing I think is going to be really important is creator tools and giving creators the way to create something exclusive for their top coin holders. Because one of the problems is today is that I'm if I'm a creator on Instagram, I'm saying, come to BitClout, great. Why? Well, you can buy my coin. Why? Because I'm going to do something that's going to be unique for you guys, but I haven't quite figured out how. What we need to do as a platform is make it super easy for that creator to sort of give that exclusive content or that exclusive experience to their top coin holders, and to make that
Yep.
just like a very, very simple way to just
So
build that.
So it's funny you say that. So I'm just chatting right now with Mark Manson's team, the
Hmm.
author of Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. So because like
Yeah.
for our product, where one of the products we built was basically just making membership pages for someone's WordPress site,
Right. Yeah.
right? And so they had the exact same concern. They were
Hmm.
like, the tech is great,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of friction here. How can
Yeah.
we make, when a user comes in, it makes sense because for me, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. What we want to do is just get someone to put in their credit card, like they do in Top Shots,
Yeah.
and it automatically turns that into BitClout,
That's
and
right.
then they can purchase it as compared to
Yeah.
making an account on BitClout and then
Yeah.
buying. That's just
Yeah.
that. Even though the credit card functionality is available,
Yeah.
but you need that some sort of like API, which is automatically you buy, and it automatically turns that into for
Like
other applications. I mean,
an even better would be, and let's take that example. Mark Manson puts out a tweet, um, come and join my exclusive club, for which you'll get these benefits. The user clicks on the link, they download Flick in this instance, they put in their credit card, and the amount of BitClout they buy immediately it turns into this creator coin, and they're
yep.
in the club. And so they don't have to, in that first go round, they just know Mark Manson, they know his content, and they're in the club, and their experience, and that's what we want to build.
And it's totally frictionless. Exactly.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah, that's something we've been working on, and we've been thinking about quite a lot about that too. And
Hmm.
and so, are you thinking of doing that in the app itself? When, like, example,
Yes.
when okay, perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Because
that.
it's just like, and I've seen some solutions where it's outside of the app, and it's just, it's, oh, go to this other place where you can go and get the content, and I'm part of some of those, and I see it the first time and then I totally forget about it. And
Yep.
so that's the thing, is it has to be a seamless experience. It has to be a place where I read free content, is also the same place I get exclusive content.
I love that. I guess my last question to you is, like, talking about FanDuel and StarStock. Like, so do you see at some point some kind of integration, not even with your company, but like in general
Hmm.
with like something where people are tipping with the creator coins or stuff like that?
Um, so, how do you mean?
So like betting with
Oh,
someone's
like sort
creator
of
coins,
betting
betting
with
or
credit card.
tipping or yeah.
Um, so FanDuel obviously like a betting product. The betting market's a very heavily regulated market. It's since I left FanDuel, I've really not kind of gone near that market. It's and then unfortunately because it's very heavily regulated, it's very hard to innovate in that market. And so I've kind of stayed away from that with StarStock. So StarStock is a trading card marketplace. You know, Interestingly, in StarStock, people are actually trading digital cards, digital contracts for cards. Because when you buy and sell, you're not actually buying and selling the card because you don't actually have it. You're buying and selling the right to get that card. And so oftentimes, if somebody like buys a card on, and they never actually ask for it from the vault. They keep it in the vault because they want to sell it later on. So I think that's an interesting experience. I think what we're seeing in BitCloud is sort of extending that to creators, and kind of, and then some of the creators on there are starting to associate. their coin with tangible value. And so it's been interesting, sort of taking the experience from Starstock to BitClout, but as a sort of like a way to trade assets, and those coins being like a representation of that asset.
I also see some form of an NFT feature at some point. I'm guessing on BitClout where,
That's right.
yeah, where, what I mean, like where like the creators can actually create that on the
Hmm.
platform, and that all can happen too.
Yeah, and like just to give you an example, so Gary Vee did like a really interesting project with NFTs
Yeah.
where he created
Yep.
utility to it. When I look at that, I'm like, this is great. But he had to go to a lot of effort to build that, and he had to build a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
platform. And he had a lot of tech issues. Like with BitClout, what we want to have is that anyone can do it with no technical knowledge whatsoever, and they can do it in 5 minutes. And
Yep.
that's where we want to get to. Let me
Yep.
create that exclusive club of exclusive benefits, where if certain people own certain things, then they can get those benefits.
I talked to Paul from Moonbounce. They were
Hmm.
kind of in that direction, and they were making some really good progress. And I think just
Yes.
raised their round two now, so they're doing pretty
Hmm.
well. I'm excited to see how their project kind
Yeah.
of
No,
turns
and
out.
it's one of the products that I've used, and so like
Yeah,
absolutely, we just think there's a huge opportunity there.
yeah, love that. Thank you, Nigel, for coming on the show. Really
No problem.
appreciate your time. This was amazing. Great to like learn from you and what you're working on and how this gonna the ecosystem is gonna evolve. It's amazing to listen from you.
No problem. More than happy to come on.